our webinar. I'll give you guys opportunity just for people who have just joined now, just to give them a bit of an idea that this webinar is being recorded and it will be put on our website, ProPac Consultants website. So while we're waiting for this, just let's take another 10 seconds and then we'll kick off. Thank you very much for joining, everyone. Okay, pretty good audience coming up. It's really good, really good. Okay, I think we can start. Again, thank you everyone for joining. If you can't hear me or if there's a problem with the video, by all means, please raise your hand and the team will look into the technicalities of it. The webinar today, we're going to discuss about implementation of a hybrid PMO in a complex business environment. This is something that I personally did it at one of my assignments a few years back, and I thought it's a good opportunity for me to share my learning with everyone. A bit of a background in terms of what ProPac Consultant does. We are an Australian registered project management consulting and training organization. We've been in the business for about 6 years in Australia. We started consulting services somewhere around February, March 2014, and since then we have got a pretty good base within Australia. We specialize in project management consulting and setting up and implementing project management offices. So we have pretty good clients across Australia. We also run extensive training, not only on PMO, but also project management and soft skills. Some of the trainings that you can see on the screen. There's a website. We also have a YouTube channel where we pass on all the information to our clients. So please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hopefully you can join us on the LinkedIn as well. So there's a link there. Please do join our Instagram page as well. You will get a lot of information in terms of what's happening in the future. We do tend to post in terms of free templates and free information and blogs. So please do join us. Okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty of the PMO. So as most of you already know, in the PMO business, the unfortunate truth is there's no single clearly defined process that we can adopt for establishment of the PMO. And it's funny because PMOs are supposed to be the custodian of the standards themselves, and the unfortunate reality is that we do not have a standard among ourselves. And we can talk about it. We've got another webinar where I talk about it, why we have that kind of a situation. But in a situation when the entity itself does not have a standard, it is very difficult to convince your clients to follow a standard. But that's something we're going to talk about it in later webinars as well. So let's talk about the methodologies that we have prevalent in the market. So the number one, which is pretty much everyone is familiar with, is waterfall or predictive. This is a traditional sequential task methodology. It's been there for ages. In general, the planning is done in the beginning of the project. We know what the end goal is. There's a low level of execution, uncertainty, and risk. And one of the biggest challenge with this approach is that the change is very rigid. So there is change allowed, but the change control is very rigid. So organizations and projects tend to go through a very strict change control, and that really causes a lot of bureaucracy and creates a lot of bureaucracy in that. Mostly this methodology is used when we have a clear vision of what the end deliverable looks like. It's extensively used in industries like manufacturing and civil industry and defense industry. So to give you an example, if we are building an aircraft, we know that the end goal is the aircraft. That's what we want, and how we modify it and so on and so forth. We go through the change control, right? The success in this methodology is measured against the cost, scope, and budget. Traditional project management are in triangle. Been there, this methodology has been there for decades, have been there successfully, still one of the most popular methodologies. But over the period of last 3 decades or so, the world is changing. World is changing in the sense that we now have disruptive environment around us. The new economy is very versatile, very dynamic, and pretty much every day we hear about new concept, new approaches. About way back in 2000, 2001, the few guys, they got together and said, oh, this is not something that we can use for software development. So they came up with an agile manifesto, which was based on 4 values. And those values were basically the brainchild of those four folks. And the reason for that from their point of view, the software development needed to be fast tracked, and they can't really sit back and wait for the change control to happen. So they said, well, we need to have something that will focus more on individual and interaction rather than process and tools. We need a working software rather than comprehensive planning documentation. And their third principle was, there needs to be a lot of customer collaboration when we are doing a project rather than nitty gritty of the contract negotiation and so on and so forth. And the most important one was that they said we will welcome change at any phase of the project. And the reason for that is, like I said, the traditional waterfall approach was very strict when it comes to change management. The challenge with agile then it became is when you have a complex big project, how do you go about managing it? So they said, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to split the project into chunks and features, and we're going to do that project instead of phases. We're going to basically dissect that complex piece of work into small sections that we can deliver. So instead of building one big program, we're gonna do one piece of the program, get it to the customer, ask customer to validate, customer happy, and then we move on to next, and so on and so forth. So the whole idea was that to have a working software, and that was their primary measure of the success. They came up with an approach that change would be accepted even at the late stage of the development. I'm sure people who are familiar with Agile, they are now, they must have heard about Scrum, Safe Agile, and Kanban, some of the very famous Agile approaches that we use. It's called adaptive because it's basically adapting to the situation, to the condition that we have. Agile is based on short cycle delivery. So change comes in, look at the change, look at the requirement, they scope it, get a team to work on it, create a demo, test it, and deliver to the client. Now, that change may not be the end result or the end product. So let's take an example of if you're talking about any gaming industry. What they do is they split that game into phases, so you can have level 1, level 2, and level 3. So rather going into detail, I'm pretty sure most of you are already familiar with. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what's the main difference between our traditional sequential waterfall approach and the agile. Like I said, the agile came up is because of the strict change control and because of the restriction around how the scope could be changed in the traditional method. So these are the two main methodologies. Let's have a quick poll. Yasser, if you could start the first poll. I would like to know what type of project management methodology is used in your organization and division. If you could help us respond to the poll that you can see on the screen. We're good. Let's give you a couple of minutes for that. Okay, just a little bit of time for the others as well. Okay. But a few. It seems like most of you are using hybrid approach. Okay, that's really good. That's really good. So I think that's pretty common these days. That a lot of organizations are now looking at finding some middle ground in between the waterfall and agile. And I think that's one of the reasons. One of the major reasons for that is the disruptive environment around us. There's no rules in terms of the growth of the organization. COVID-19 is a very good example. Nobody could imagine about 6 months back that there will be so much video conferencing happening. A lot of IT companies are used to working from home, remote networking, but the way this whole the world has changed in the last 6 months, that's really phenomenal. So absolutely right. So I think everybody in the organizations are now looking at a middle ground. So thank you very much for your feedback. Apologies for this noise. Okay. The reality is that as I said, that because of the environment, because of the changing environment, we cannot put our hand on our heart, say, okay, we will just follow a traditional waterfall, or we're going to deploy a traditional agile approach for the duration of the entire project. Now, and I say with experience, and even when you have civil constructions going on, while the civil and defense and manufacturing, there are a majority of them are still very traditional waterfall focused. The challenge is that now IT and software development is part of pretty much everything that we do. Even when we build the bridges, the mechanism to manage and maintain the bridge has a software component to it. So while the construction of the bridge may be waterfall based, it has to go through a sequential task. The software involved in that is most of the time is agile based. Secondly, the organizations are now very focused on how they can use their agile approaches in their business as well. So I think there's something that we need to be careful about. Let's go into the case study organization. As I said in the beginning, this is something where I have personally worked on and led the PMO. It's a global organization. I can't go into the detail of the name, and I'm sure you will appreciate that. A leader in finance and payment industry, has a huge customer base across the APAC and Australia and global. IT is predominantly safe agile, and business processes were very sequential, procurement, vendor management, invoicing. Key issue with this case study was that customers were not satisfied with the delivery timeframe. We were delivering, there was a lot of delivery was happening, products were being rolled out, but they were just not what customer wanted. So that's just to give you a bit of a background. The challenge that we had is there was lack of project governance in the context of agility. And when I say in the context of agility, it is important to understand when we talk about agility is not only just software development and how quickly we do the work. Agility also refers to, in the industry today, is how quickly the organization responds to disruption and the gig economy these days. The challenge with this organization was the business was still very traditionally sequential focused. So finance or procurement or even resource hiring were very, very sequential tasks. We also had a situation where we had an agreement with our clients where their requirements would come in and we had to follow a certain rigor, converting that requirement into a statement of work for the project. So that was a very sequential task. On the flip side of it, IT was very agile focused, and their view was that agile teams are very self-governing. We don't need a lot of governance around it. I do disagree with this approach. I know agile believes in the self-governing team, but my personal view is, and I'm happy to take questions on it, is that this is probably misunderstood and misrepresented within the Scrum Masters community, that their processes are not required. Absolutely, we are definitely not talking about policeman governance kind of a governance, but we do need governance. The interaction is always required, but the governance has to be a practical governance. You can't get away without any paperwork. So there was a lack of balance between, like I said, between the formal project governance and delivery was just not responsive. Then we have a situation. Then we had a situation where there was a lack of benefit realization. So in terms of IT delivery, they were always looking at the feature development, and I'm sure people who have come from the background of agile, they understand when I talk about feature development. Nobody was really looking at the benefit realization. Everybody was focused on how quickly they can get the product out. and basically looking at the iron triangle scope, schedule and budget delivery, literally realizing how much impact that end product would have on the strategic initiative of the project, on the organization. There was lack of recognition that the traditional governance is necessary. Yeah, we all know it, but insufficient to deal with the rapid changes. I think that was the main problem. There was an appreciation, but there was a lack of understanding that the world is changing so fast that the PMO will have to adapt. There's no way the PMO can focus on traditional governance and not change with the changing world. So that was one of the things. Let's have a quick poll, one more poll. What do you think, in your opinion, and based on your experience, is an average lifespan of a PMO in an organization? So when I say PMO, you can consider as a project management office or program management office, the portfolio. So you can take any version that you have come across. What do you think is an average lifespan? Thank you, Yasser, for putting the poll up. I can see there's the 50-50. Okay. Okay, coming up. Wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. So for the benefit of people who are, the average life of a PMO within an organization is 2 to 4 years. And so people who selected 2 to 4, they're absolutely right. And the reason is that the PMO survival is really aligned with the execs and the sponsor that they have. And the way the organization is changing these days, there's a reorg in organization pretty much every 2 to 3 years, and you find PMOs without a sponsor, and a lot of time when the new sponsor comes in, they basically look at how the PMOs are performing, and they have a different view, and they would either disband the PMO, or the PMO would be totally closed, or maybe reassigned to some other duty. So according to global research, the 2 to 4 years is the maximum time before the PMOs are closed, and which is very unfortunate. Now, there are a number of reasons for that. So key reasons for the PMO failures are, lack of strategic alignment. A lot of organizations are now looking at how PMOs can add value rather than just giving them reports and numbers. There's lack of responsiveness. Responsiveness is the second most critical issue that they have identified as a PMO failure. There's a concept of management overhead. We talked about governance policemen and lack of stakeholder management. But my point over here is there's a lack of responsiveness, which was the case which was reason in case of this case study that we are discussing is that PMO was really good, but it was not really effective, and it was really creating a problem to align with the strategy. Now, I do have a full video series on a PMO failure. When I send the deck out, please, by all means, subscribe to it. You will see it talks about how we look into these PMO failures and what we can do about it. So the other thing I just want to highlight, as ProPack consultants, we do a lot of project management trainings and PMO training. We have a training coming up in September, which is establishing a project management office. It's a very extensive interactive training for 5 days, 3 hours every day. It's a virtual training. It used to be a 2-day course, but because of the COVID-19, we are now focusing only on virtual training. Please do join this training if you can. You can avail a 50% discount on it at the moment. We go in nitty-gritty detail of what the PMO is, what type of the PMO, what you can do, what you need to do, how you create a business case for the PMO, how you design a PMO, and the stakeholder management, how you identify PMO stakeholders. To an extent that it's one of our most popular courses. We have a very good feedback about it. A lot of people have come out of this course and then gone and took the approach and implemented PMOs within their division and organization. What we do is, as part of this course, is we give you 4 free templates. One is a step-by-step PMO implementation plan, which is very popular. It tells you at every step, how you start the initiation, how you engage the stakeholders, what you need to take into consideration. help you build a project management methodology framework. That's also, we have got a template that we can share with you. We give you as part of this course. We create as part of this course, we create a project charter, and you can also get a template. And finally, we create an extensive PMO strategy. And again, that template is given as part of. So by all means, please take the opportunity to register for the course. Our next session is scheduled in September, so you have a couple of months. In saying that, it's not the only time. We do on-demand training and courses as well. So if you're interested in your organization conducting these trainings, please reach out to me. At the end of this webinar, I'll send you my details out as well, and I can come and talk to you. We can have a video chat. So if I can't come in person, and look into your requirements, and we can tailor-made presentation for course for you as well. So please do consider that. Okay, moving on to case study. So what was the impact to the organization in terms of the challenges that we discussed? Response to change was not quick enough. Documentation. So if you remember, I mentioned that the customer would send a requirement, and we had a contractual agreement to create a statement of work. Converting customer requirement into a statement of work that was then given to the IT to create deliverables, it was a very lengthy process. And as any other client, the client would change the requirement in the middle of the analysis, and we would have challenges, working with with our IT. That caused slower time to the market. We were losing market share to the client. A lot of time, because of the market dynamics, client would ask us to do something which we were either reluctant to or not able to because of our own bureaucratic governance process. So that was causing a problem. Our opportunity cost was very high because of this. A lot of strategic initiatives were missed. We were starting to lose market, and it started to concern the senior execs how we come back, how we gain the market back. The other challenge was that there was a lack of project prioritization and selection. So while there was a project that were coming from the client, there was little understanding from the IT to prioritize those projects. So they were looking at the business were busy with other things. So a PMO was caught in the middle, and we didn't have a good project prioritization and selection process. So that was the other major challenge that we had was lack of transparency. From once the project were prioritized, there was lack of transparency was how IT was delivering those projects. So these were some of the issues. In summary, there was a total lack of misalignment between what business needed and what IT was delivering, and it was creating frustration for both the parties. So that was the situation we were in. So PMO, the organization decided to have a consultant. So we went in, and we looked at what was going on. We had a look at it. We had a detailed end-to-end analysis. We realized that there are certain processes that we could not change. Finance, procurement, customer engagement, statement of work process. It had to be. There was no way we could fast track it. For the global organization, it has its own bureaucracy. It has its own process there. Then we found out there was no formal project prioritization and selection method. Projects were being passed on from customer to the business analysis team to the IT, and nobody was saying this is the key priority and this is what we need. So that was it. There was a total lack of communication between the business and IT. There was hardly fortnightly, quarterly meeting between the senior execs. They would discuss at a high level what projects going on. Nobody was really giving them exact clear status. We realized that there were resources that were required, but we also at the same time we found out that adding the fresh resources within the organization was a fairly long process. It had to go through regional and global approvals. So that I'm sure some of you there, you understand that. In terms of IT commitment to the industry to delivery, the most interesting aspect of IT was delivering. So that was a really very interesting. So they were delivering what they pick up as a project, but the problem was that those projects were not really strategically aligned. So, and IT had minimal understanding of what is the impact of the delivery that they're doing or not delivering. So there was total lack of transparency between the business and IT. The funny thing was we realized that the IT management did have an understanding, but that understanding was not trickled down to the IT delivery teams. IT alignment on strategic goal was desperately needed. That's one of the things that we found out, that that's what was really needed. Let's have a quick poll. Let's see what are the challenges that you have faced within your organization. If Yate, you could pull up the poll again, and let's have a read of it. We have quite a few, significant number here. Let's see what are the issues that you guys are facing within your organization. I'll give you a minute or two for that. Okay. Good. Okay. Some of you have said none of the above. I'm really interested to know what are the challenges you're facing. Do put it out in the chat and we can discuss it after this. It would be really good to know what challenges that you guys are facing at in your organization. So, okay, wonderful. Okay, let's finish it up. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. So, yep. So we talked about it. I saw some of the comments about options about none of the above. So I'm really interested to know what you guys are facing. It will be really good to have an understanding of what problems are there in the market. Okay, one disclaimer. Let me put it very clearly. A hybrid delivery approach is not the solution to each and every project. Similarly, like agile and waterfall is not suitable for every organization. So you really have to consider, before you take this approach, you really have to consider the organization culture. You have to see whether there's an adaptability to change, what's the size of the organization, what will be the impact to the business processes like finance and procurement and auditing and marketing. Excuse me. And most of all, what is the organizational appetite for risk? This is very, very key, because when we are looking at change of this nature, this is a significant nature change. When you're trying to merge two methodologies, the organization must be able to respond to it and be able to take some risk. It's not always the change of this nature is successful. It may be successful at a lower scale, and it does take time as well. So something to take into consideration. In terms of plan, how did we go about? So what did we do? Now, we realized the traditional waterfall approach was not working for us. And we also realized that the transformation to agile was not a quick process. It can take, organizations can take long. So we realized that we needed mindset change. We needed to combine traditional and agile method in some form to achieve business objectives. We went for the middle ground. We created PMO as a PMO. As a consultant, we created a short-term goal, which was that task that could be fine-tuned to enhance delivery in the short run. And then we came up with the long-term goals, which is high-level action for delivery transformation into agile where possible. And we put it as a 6-month, 3-month plan, 6-month plan, and 9-month plan. We called it's called a rolling wave plan, where you come up with immediate plan and the future plan. We were also not certain, based on the organization culture, whether agile would be the best way to approach it as an organizational level. There were certain global restrictions, there was certain regulation that we had to follow. So we decided to approach it and take the middle ground and said, okay, let's find a middle ground. We'll try to combine traditional agile method in some form to achieve our business objectives. The whole goal was to bring synergy between the strategic organizational objectives and project deliverable. As I said, the IT was delivering, but it was probably not delivering enough, or not delivering or projects that were aligned with the strategic organizational strategy. So that's something we took on. We decided to implement a strategic project selection and prioritization method. I said, okay, this is what we're going to do it. So we went about doing it. I'm going to go into a bit of a detail and we agreed to support innovation, which was, again, this is where it comes on our agile approach. Instead of sticking to the rigid change control, we said we are going to support innovation. If there's something comes up with a new idea of implementing something that we are trying to do, we will accept it and we'll help them do it. And so PMO had to take the lead. And we took rigor without rigidity approach. So we provided governance. We also realized that we cannot be rigid about it. So we said, okay, fine. The way the PMO is going to function is that we're going to help you with innovation. We'll help you with the change request. We will maneuver the bureaucracy around it, but we also need a little bit governance around it. So I'll explain you what we did it in a little while. But just to give you a bit of an idea is that how we approach it. And it was really well received, because it was not my way or highway. It was, okay, let's sit together. We had a very long brainstorming session with not only with the leadership, business and IT leadership, but also at the delivery level, and the SMEs and the doers and the business analysts and scrum masters and all those people who are usually involved in project delivery. So we went to that level to make sure that everybody's feedback and opinion was listened to. We listened to everyone, and then we came up with an approach that was really worked very well. So we're going to go do it, explain you a little bit more. Just another one, we've got like I said, we do a lot of project management training and PMO training. We have another one, strategic project portfolio management. It's a very important course, especially for people who are in PMO management. We do, again, this course is one of our popular courses where a lot of organizations have asked us to deliver it. It helps them set up their project portfolio at a program level and a portfolio level as well. One of the things that our clients ask for in this course is the project prioritization I mentioned here. So we not only teach our candidates how to do project prioritization, we also have a special templates that we share with our candidates and participants, and we give them as part of it. So the one is the project complexity and risk assessment tool, very, very critical tool especially for very, very dynamic, fast organization, because you want to make sure that the projects that you pick are of the right complexity and have the right risk value assigned to it. So something that we give for free templates as part of this course as well. Please do look into this course as well. Again, at the moment, we haven't got anything scheduled for this course, but happy to do it. If you have a demand, or if there's a need in your organization, please do let us know. I'll send the pack out, drop me a note, and I'm happy to discuss your requirement, and we'll see how we go. Okay. An empowered PMO can become a bridge between strategic objective and organizational success by aligning strategy with the investment in project execution. That's a very powerful statement, and that statement has come about after a very thorough research, not by me, but by Global Organization PMI. So, and this is very key. This is important for us to understand that organizations today are not really looking for PMOs to be just reporting and tool providers. They're looking PMOs to provide added value. They're looking at PMOs to help them achieve their strategic objectives, and that's the key. According to PMI Pulse of the Profession Survey in 2018, about 85% organizations across the globe said they are looking at PMOs to take initiative and lead the strategy as well. This is really key. A PMO has to evolve. As a PMO, experts and SMEs, you will understand, we need to evolve with the market. We cannot stay we cannot continue with the rigid traditional waterfall approach, and have to evolve with the world around us. So this is something to take into account. Well, I'm happy to take questions after that if you have. Okay, coming back to our approach. So what we did is, so we focus on three. So we said to the organization, we're going to focus on three areas. We're going to focus on how the planning and forecasting is done within the organization. We're going to talk about, look into how the product development is done. If you remember, I mentioned the IT was really focused on safe agile. And the final thing we said, we have to look into the collaboration, and we have to find a way of simplification of the governance. So these are the three key things that we focused on. We realized that if you focus on these three areas, then initially to start with, then we can and have some quick wins, then we can have help organization meet this immediate strategic plans and then help them build on this success. We suggested that PMO to be accountable for strategic project delivery, and that was accepted. So organization put PMO. There was a lot of reshuffle within the PMO. The PMO team was rebuilt. New resources were assigned, were brought in. There was assigned project managers. Business analysis competency were put under the PMO. So PMO was made accountable for the strategic project delivery. Okay, what did we do? We said strategic planning, selection, and prioritization. PMO was held responsible. PMO would run a fortnightly project planning and selection and prioritization, and created a backlog of the project. So people who are from the agile background, they would understand the concept of the backlog. We defined a staffing and the staffing model required to deliver that backlog. So we realized that the cost of agile that the cost of agile projects is usually derived from the labor and the velocity that they the amount of work that they do. So we used that model to define the staffing model. We used the unexpected team velocity, team configuration, high level features to develop the feature estimate. So we split the prioritized project into features, and then we gave our IT to go into stories and everything. But before that, so PMO stayed involved until the product was split into features, and we said, okay, this is the feature that we want. This is the feature we want early or later. And I'll tell you why we did that. We assigned a business project manager. So just to give you an idea, is that PMO was set up as part of the business, not IT. So we assigned a business project manager to work very closely with the Scrum Master within the IT team. So basically, both project manager and Scrum Master were joined from by the hip, and they work very closely. So instead of Scrum Master running the daily stands up, it was the PMO business program manager who would do one day he would run that stand up and another day. So we alternate that. And the reason for doing that, so that there was an understanding, there was an appreciation of how the two work, how the team should have an understanding. So it was a kind of way of help them build a collaboration and also understand in the as part of team building exercise. In terms of product development, we said, okay, so the feature, but then we said we would like to focus on MVP only, which is minimum viable product. So, and this is just I'm trying to focus on things that our immediate goal was for 6 months. We needed to bring the delivery aligned with the strategic objectives, and there was revenue targets assigned to us. We said, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to focus on MVP only. So for each project, prioritized project, we picked up the MVP, came up the MVP, and it was not just PMO making that decision. We worked with the teams, we worked with the Scrum Master, with the IT and the business analysis, and then that MVP was decomposed into features. So, and that was something that really worked very well. We defined during the PI plannings, because people who are familiar with Safe Agile, they would know what the PI planning is. This is where the organization's safe approach methodology. They go into the planning session, what they decide over a period of next 3 months what they're going to do. So we used that, and PMO was basically extremely engaged, was party to it. We led that as part of the PI planning, and resources were assigned based on their capacity available on each release cycle. Demo for each iteration was made mandatory. So there was no way that they could pass on, the IT could pass on the product into the test environment without first demoing with the PMO and getting an approval. So that really worked. Then we also had, Then we put QA approval as a mandatory requirement. So like I said, there was a lot of processes were bypassed initially. So we said, well, only the features that will pass QA will be put into the production environment. Team collaboration we were very high on team collaboration through regular reporting, analysis, and management review. And what it did is it helped a lot of organizations. So while there was a fear of PMO being a governance policeman, by putting a business project manager and PMO lead as part of these daily functions, it helped elevate those fears, and it helped really help build a team environment within the organization. Then we looked at the collaboration simplification. We said we have to come up with simplification. We cannot just rely, PMO cannot be just, to the parent entity and looking over the projects. So we started with a monthly resource forecasting, meaning prioritization and selection collaboration. Like I said, it wasn't just one-off PMO decision, it was a team decision. We got everybody involved in it. We got global leaders and global and regional team leaders involved in it. And timing was a challenge, like it is at the moment for most of you, but it really helped us. And we kind of fostered the collaboration and engagement within the PMO. So the fear of PMO being the governance policeman, I think I can safely say that we helped elevate that. People were really happy. In fact, PMO was recognized as one of the most efficient team at the end of first year. So just to give you an idea how effective this was. We simplified project startup process. So initially, before that, it was a very cumbersome process. I mentioned to you the requirement coming in and SOW and so on and so forth. So we went to the client. We said, we need you to give me a requirement in advance. Understand we still have to do the required statement of work process, but we worked on with the clients, our clients, to simplify that process. So it worked, and with some clients, it did not work with other clients. But it did is it helps us to fine tune that process as well. We reduced the PMO governance template stack from 40 to 15. So people who are familiar with the PMO operation would appreciate that it's a big task. So reducing the governance, templates from 40 to 15 is a huge, and 40 is a very big number. So just to give you guys an idea of what we did and how we approach it. So all in all, it was a very good approach, something which was really appreciated. We rationalized the project governance for and reporting requirements. And when I say that, what it means is that instead of having IT reporting differently or separately, and business, we rationalized. We said, okay, let's do it collaboratively. Let's do together. PMO led the way again. PMO combined the risk and issue management framework across the business and IT. It was a very tough ask. I can tell you that it's not easy. It's very difficult at times. But what it did, it again, I think if I look back and think about it, what we achieved is, I think the collaboration was really good. Just because PMO came to the party and helped people work with them, sat side by side. PMO team was really effectively engaged, and I'm not talking about the PMO lead only. I'm talking about the entire PMO team, like business project managers, business BAs, and change managers work very closely with the IT. Dependency management across the projects. We looked at the holistically, which project, how many projects are there, which projects are dependent on interdependency. So that's something we looked into it. I talked about the resource management, and I think I've pretty much mentioned a lot of times about the regular communication with the stakeholders. So we not only stayed in touch with our technical team, we went way above and stayed, provided regular communication to our senior stakeholders, to our clients, to our vendors, and our external parties as well. Okay, before I go to the final section of this, so I really would like to have a bit of a feedback from you. So if you could just give us your feedback, what you think about this at the moment, I would really appreciate that. There's a webinar. There are a couple of questions there, 4 questions in fact. I'll probably take you 2 minutes if you don't mind. That will really help us. Thank you guys. Appreciate your feedback. Thank you. People are responding. So Very good. Thank you very much for your feedback. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, 30 seconds, and then we'll move on to the next one. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay. Okay, thank you very much for your feedback, guys. Appreciate that. Okay, so let's look at what did we achieve in terms of, by taking that approach, by taking the three focus area, by tackling those three focus area, our time to market significantly improved. Delivery, what we did is we delivered high priority strategy project instead of run of the mill. IT was only focused on the projects that we prioritize, and they delivered those ones. We had a significant increase in the customer satisfaction. People were very happy. Our clients were very happy. We delivered what they were looking for. So I think that was a really big success. And to give you an idea, this turnaround was over a period of 8 months after our initial analysis. So it took us, it did not take us 2 months or something. It just took us about 8 months to come to this success. There were some really hard lessons as well in there. In terms of one of the success that I really consider that is that we really encouraged innovation and collaboration from the IT team. So the fear of PMO as a governance and not helping them, excuse me, not helping them and being fully focused on just governance processes, which is predominantly the agile teams complain. That's something that we got rid of. We come up with a model that we work with them, and I think that is something that organization continue to do. Hopefully, the organization will continue to do that. It helped IT deliver what the organization needed what business needed to meet the customer requirements. So I think that's and the development of the team building and collaboration was really good. I think that was one of the biggest stuff. This brings us to the end of the webinar. I'm happy to take questions from you if you've got any questions for us. Sumbul, do we have any questions?
Please raise hands and I'll unmute your mic so you can ask them yourself.
Yeah, that would be good. If anybody has a question, we can unmute you. Yeah. No worries. Okay, yes, Khwaja Safarman, I am gonna unmute you. Khwaja Safarman, we can hear you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you very much for such a informative session. I needed your feedback on the thing that what's your experience with regard to teams? Do they even understand that understand the need of strategic alignment? Do they even understand that there's something called there's a strategy for which the project was undertaken, and that the work they're doing it has some business repercussions, and that there's a need of that alignment. So in your experience, do you think that teams understand that? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Khwaja Safarman, for your question. It's absolutely a very good question, and frankly speaking, to be very honest, I think in all reality, that was one of the problems. If you look at the start of the presentation, I did mention that the IT was delivering, but there was little understanding of the impact, the positive, negative impact of delivery. This something I think comes back to, in my experience, I've come across an organization I work with, a lot of complex multinational organizations. It really depends on the organizational culture, and a culture and an organizational culture where there's an appreciation of what strategy alignment means, or what the organization leadership is willing to pass on that information to the delivery teams. It's that's the only way that it will work. If I take a guess on how many times, it's probably very low. You're absolutely right. The lack of understanding of strategic alignment in the project delivery is very high these days, and I think that is something that we really need to work on. PMOs can really support in that area. PMOs can be strategic partner. The challenge with the PMOs is that organizations have just now come to realize that PMOs can do that function as well. So if you look at traditionally, PMOs are looked at as just reporting and tool entity. They can generate the report. So it's only in the last 5-7 years that organizations started to use PMOs for strategy execution. And I'm pretty confident. I think it's going to change. It also comes back to how your leadership wants your staff to be involved in strategy execution. So in an organization, and I can tell you there are some organizations that I've worked with where leadership was really engaged. They realized what the strategy is. So the strategy in most of the organization, strategy is a buzzword. People don't even understand what that is. So I think that's the reality of it. But it's a good question. I think you're right. So there's a lot of work needs to be done in that area. I hope I answered your question. Anybody else?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, guys. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate that. And we'll send that deck out. If there's any question, by all means, please do look into the trainings that we are offering. It would really help. We have some others, some other training as well. If you go on our website, and if you've got any question, by all means, please drop me an email. I'm happy to respond. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.